You really don't know how you'll lead under pressure until pressure arrives. That's when unclear roles, poor habits, and hidden weaknesses will come to the surface. Today, I'm sharing 7 leadership lessons you won't learn on a quiet day. You'll only learn them when the heat is on, people are looking at you for what to do next. Welcome to Leadership in the Line of Fire. By the way, if these leadership lessons are making you think differently, you'll find much more in my book, Run Towards the Flames. It's packed with real fireground stories, hard-earned leadership lessons, and practical strategies you can use when the pressure is on. Grab your copy at Amazon and take the next step to becoming the leader your team can rely on. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to keep the leadership lessons coming. In my experience, the longer you lead in more situations, the better you get if you reflect on how it works. On a fire, I know what to do very quickly once I have the key information. Pressure doesn't create confusion. It exposes what was never clear. If people don't know who's in charge, what matters most, or what they're responsible for, the pressure will build very quickly. Pressure doesn't create confusion. It exposes what was never clear. If people don't know who is in charge, what matters most, or what they're responsible for, the pressure will bring that out very quickly. You can't expect people to suddenly understand their roles when everything is going wrong around them. It's really important that people are ready before the situation happens. Their training and preparation is really important because through training and preparation, when incidents happen, we're able to deal with them because we've been through them before. We've examined them, we've discussed them, we've heard stories about them. Everything about that possible incident has already played out in our mind or in a scenario. That puts us in a unique position as a leader and as a follower to apply that information in a practical way. We can't expect people to do the right thing if we've never taught them how to do it. And it's a common problem. I see people go in, they tell people what to do, and then wonder why they can't do it. They have no understanding of what their team is capable of. That's one of the reasons you should be in the room during training. You can't trust your people if you don't know what they're able to do. You've got to be there. You've got to feel it yourself. You need to know your leaders and their teams. And I mean, know them before you arrive. You need to know your leaders and their teams. And I mean that in the way that when I'm going to a fire, I'll often tell someone else in my crew that if I have to leave the truck, they're going to be in charge. Now, I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I often have to leave the truck and take over a sector. Number two, I want the rest of the team in the truck to know that that person is automatically stepping into the role of a crew leader. Okay? I don't want it so that there's debate. I don't want confusion. When I leave, that person steps up and takes on the role of looking after the crew. And the crew knows that. So there's no problems. There's a fluidity to the situation and everybody knows what's going on. Make sure that when you're dealing with problems, that you ask questions before you decide. Don't guess. It's easy to be in charge, but to be in charge, you need all the right answers. And I've discussed this previously in the podcast. So make sure you get the answers you need before you make decisions. Guessing is the most dangerous thing you can do. Even an educated guess is good, but the word educated is there, meaning that you've collected the information. Remember to use your span of control. Make sure that people aren't loaded with too much work. Spread it out more. Have one person in charge of up to 5 people, 7 at the absolute outside, but span of control is really important. When you're dealing with problems, standard operating procedures are really important, and that's why we write them before we get to a situation. You can have a problem in life, in your business, and you can go and pull your SOPs off the wall and look up that problem and go, this is what I need to do. I'm a technician by trade, which means that I've dealt with technical problems all my life, be it large computer systems like telephone exchanges where I started, or educational networks where I've got thousands of computers connected to a network. But when things go wrong, I know to go and pull that manual off the wall because I can then look up that problem and go, oh, that's caused by this. Now, these days, technically, I can go to Google and look things up, which is a fantastic thing to have happen. But back when I started, there was no Google. So, having those manuals helps you as a leader make sure that things keep moving properly. Number two, pressure doesn't just expose your weaknesses. It can turn your strengths against you. Being decisive is normally a strength, but under pressure, it can make you reckless. Confidence can stop you listening, while being cautious can stop you acting. Sometimes your biggest strength becomes your biggest problem. Today, I thought I'd use the example of a big, loud, boisterous leader that I once met. Overconfidence in your own abilities is like a lighthouse. It draws disaster like moths to it. And I've seen this happen with this particular leader that I once met. Okay, leaders who sound good but continuously make bad decisions, but are always put in charge because of their rank, are a problem. It doesn't matter if they've been at the business for a long time. It doesn't matter if they've been a firefighter a long time. If they're continually making bad decisions, putting them in charge again is a disaster waiting to happen. And just because the disaster hasn't happened yet is often because the leaders below them are carrying extra weight. They're cleaning up the mistakes, they're rectifying the problems, and they're keeping people safe. But if they had followed the directions exactly as given, there would be problems. One of the biggest issues I see is people who get passed on courses, even though an observer could see that they aren't making any good decisions. It's important that when people are going through training, that you are picking up their mistakes and getting them to correct it. Just passing people because they turned up, those days should be gone. Okay, when we mark courses these days, it's often competent or not competent. No one likes to say someone's not competent. And yet at school, everybody was happy to see someone fail if they didn't know what they were doing, because that's the way that marking works. In the real world, we can't afford to be passing our people if they're not competent, especially if they're working in leadership roles. Giving them a piece of paper that says they know how to do something, then letting them loose is one of the most dangerous things you can do. And I can tell you as a firefighter, it's even more dangerous because you're putting people in charge on a fireground where things can mean the loss of life, property, and environment. So make sure when you're training your people that if they are not competent, that you put them through their paces until such time that they are competent. Rank tells you who has authority. Pressure shows you who has influence. The person with the highest rank isn't always the person others look to when things get tough. Watch who the team turns to for answers in confidence and for calmness. That person may be the unofficial leader, okay? Sometimes it's you, depending on the incident. Sometimes you're further down the ranks because someone else is running the problem. If that's you and people are turning to you, remember that's a great responsibility. Your job is to help your leader implement the problem. Empower your quiet leaders because you can't always be there. It's important that they are empowered to be a leader, even if they're not carrying rank. You need them to be there. You need them to be guiding the team when you're away doing something else, to know that in the background, calmly and confidently, that job is getting done. Try and keep your influencers, those quiet leaders, happy within reason. You want to make sure that they're on your side. Now, that doesn't mean sucking up to them. It means working with them, understanding what their needs are, understanding what they're looking for as well to help you do your job better. There will always be one in your team. No matter how small your team, there'll always be someone who's a quiet leader. You're looking for that person. You're looking for their calm. And sometimes, when things are crazy, having that person beside you makes a massive difference to your own leadership. Next, waiting doesn't keep your options open. It quietly removes them. Leaders sometimes delay a decision because they want more information. But while they're waiting, conditions keep changing. The longer you leave it, the fewer good options you may have left. I've discussed this previously. A good decision is better than a perfect one. Change can happen at any minute, and trouble always keeps moving forward on the timeline. On a fire, it gets bigger and the pressure increases. The weather changes. New crews come in. Old crews you were relying on leave. All the time that you put in can be affected by what's happening around you. So waiting longer to make a decision isn't always the best way. Obviously, we need to make good decisions, as previously discussed. We need to have that ability to push forward. One of the things we've seen over the years change is how we fight fires. Once upon a time, a brigade would have a fire in their area, they'd go out and deal with it. It might take 3 or 4 days to put out. Now we use weight of attack. Weight of attack is successful because it applies a decision quickly before things change. You get the maximum number of trucks there to attack the fire as quickly as possible. Now, this does a couple of things. First, it gets you moving before the weather has the option to change. Number 2, you can actually approach the fire from multiple sides at the same time. And number 3, you've got more crews, so more work is getting done. Weight of attack works really well. Now, some people get annoyed with that because it used to be that, we had a fire and it went for a couple of days and lots of crews would get work on that fire and they get lots of experience. Whereas now it's a lot of times the first response crews get all the experience. But that's the best way to fight a fire. In the end, we're there to put it out. We're not there to play with it or to learn. We're learning while we're doing. Fire can change very quickly and it becomes very dangerous. So we can't afford to be wasting time. Your words give the briefing. Your behavior gives the real message. You can tell everyone that things are under control, but they'll be watching your face, listening to your tone and noticing how you behave. If your words and behavior don't match, they'll believe your behavior every single time. Take a breath before you walk into a room. If you're going to give a briefing, stop, think, breathe, and enter. It's no different to going on stage. You don't just walk up, you stop for a second, gather yourself, and then enter strongly. Okay? Make sure you've cleared your head before you start talking to a group of people. Often at an incident, you've got people going everywhere. And I know, given the way my mind works, that can actually overload me. So before I give a briefing, I actually need to step back for a couple of minutes into the quiet and take a breath, read my notes, check everything I've got, and then step into the briefing that I had to do. If I don't, I've got all these voices in my head going at the same time from all the questions that have been asked to me before I walk into the room. Make sure you use notes. On the fireground, we use SMEACs so that we don't forget the important stuff. No one cares if you're reading it, okay? Because it keeps you specific and it keeps you on track and it gives them all the answers they need because, SMEAC is designed to cover all the main questions that a fire team would need to deal with the issue that they've got. If you don't understand what SMEACs are, please grab a copy of my book, Run Towards the Flames, because it's all covered in there. Have a note keeper for any questions or record the meeting so that you've got a copy of all the questions being asked. It's really important because some of those questions actually do need answers. They may be specific questions about specific problems. Others may be generic ones you can answer on the spot, but you really want to be able to do it. Your confidence in people will be reflected down the ranks. If you are confident, the people below you will be confident in the information they've got, and that will be passed on in a confident way. Next, being right may protect your pride. Correcting yourself protects the mission. Sometimes you'll make the wrong call. That's leadership, okay? The real mistake is continuing with it because you don't want to admit you're wrong. When the facts change the plan and explain why. Look, we all stuff up. Things change, but fix it. Tell them that you made a mistake and get the change made quickly. The longer you leave that problem in place, the worse it's going to get. It's going to explode on you. It's like a time bomb sitting there. Make the change, make the call, get those things changed and happening on the ground. Otherwise, it's going to come back to haunt you, okay? Keep your finger on the pulse at all times when you have plans in motion. That means getting regular sit reps at regular intervals. Don't just ask for an update every 5 hours. You're going to need an update every hour when things are moving along quickly. Now, if it's a long-term project, that's different. But when there's issues that you're dealing with, when the world's on fire, you need much more regular updates. Sometimes it can be as short as half an hour if conditions are really extreme. But remember that you want to use that span of control again. You don't want a report from everybody. You just want a few key reports. You want everything passed up so that when you get the report, it's all the key facts and not all the extraneous stuff that's going on in the fireground. And it's up to your leaders when you go to them for those sit reps to give you the most important stuff to help you make the right decisions. Make sure when you're getting those sit reps that you write it down. It's really important you have a record of what's being said, because in half an hour's time, 1,000 things will have happened and you won't be able to remember what was said. Okay? Get someone working with you if necessary as a scribe to keep a record of them. Rely on your team when they tell you there's a problem. It's really important that you listen to your team. Okay, I can't say this enough. If there's a problem, someone's going to tell you. And sometimes it might not come through as an obvious problem. Like, we can't get people into this valley, or, we're not getting food up here. They sound like, typical issues that you would have on a fire, but they're much larger than they first appear. If crews aren't getting fed, that's a massive problem, because they may have been out there 6 or 8 hours already and they haven't eaten. So now we've got fatigue, we've got hungry people, we've got people who are going to walk off the fire line. And even worse, it's a sign that, something's broken down with logistics. It's really important that people get fed when they're working on a fire. In fact, I would say after safety, it's the second most important thing. I know myself that when I'm hungry, I'm not a good person to work for, and I'm not a good person to work with, because I get grumpy. My body needs fuel just like everybody else's. So when you hear these problems, make sure that you actually keep your finger on the pulse and that you understand the importance of those things. Now, sometimes that comes from your own experience. I know what I'm like when I don't get fed. So when I hear a team didn't get fed, my ears prick up straight away, because to me, that is a major, major issue. That might sound silly to you, but if it does sound silly to you, then you haven't done enough time on the fire line. When you've gone 12 hours without food, and you might have found a food bar or a can of baked beans on the side of the truck, you get pretty ropeable. So listen for those little incidents. It makes a big difference to everybody. And it really reflects the level that your leadership is at when you start to pick up all those small things. The incident may be over, but the pressure may not be. Just because the immediate problem has been dealt with doesn't mean everybody is okay. People may still be carrying exhaustion, frustration, or doubts. A good leader checks on their teams, explains what happened, and makes sure the pressure doesn't follow them into the next incident. After any major incident, there's a lot of he said, she said, and it starts going around. They didn't do this. We're over here and we asked for help and no one came. All those issues start to come to the surface. You need to get the gripes out in the initial debrief. Obviously, people need to debrief at a lower level, but then bring everybody together that you can right then, before everybody goes home, and get a debrief off them. They need to get that stuff out. If they don't, okay, those problems will fester. And if you go from incident to incident, like happens in a general fire season for us, what happens is they bring that anger into the next incident. And if they see you're in charge, it's like their level of stress rises straight away. And that increases the pressure on you as a leader. So make sure that you're dealing with those mistakes. If you make a mistake and you feel it's necessary, apologize. There's no cost to apologizing as long as you're being honest. If they say something, you say, look, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was an issue. It didn't get to me. That's fine. People can accept that happening. But if you just say, oh, I'm sorry, and just throw it out there, it doesn't carry any weight. Be honest with people. I didn't know, or I didn't listen. I'm going to try my best to make sure it doesn't happen again, because they will watch next time. And if you show signs that you are trying to do better, then just let it go. okay? Because everybody makes mistakes. We all know that. We know our leaders make mistakes just like we do. So as long as people are trying to do better, most people forgive and forget. Make sure you update your standard operating procedures and key learnings for next time, because you don't want to do the same things twice. Standard operating procedures, as I mentioned earlier, are really important. If something's changed, for example, when you're working with computers, how things are done changes from year to year because of the software. Make sure that you update those standard operating procedures. It's no different for any other problem. Check them, make sure they're updated, see what you missed. Maybe you jumped a step, doesn't matter. Pick up those key learnings from your debrief and make sure that you fix them. Pressure doesn't make you a great leader. It shows what you're prepared for, what you've ignored, and what still needs work. In my experience, the more situations you lead through, the better you become, but only if you take time to reflect. On a fire, I can often work out what needs to happen very quickly once I have the right information. That confidence hasn't come from getting every decision right. It's come from experience, mistakes, honest debriefs, and being willing to grow. That's how pressure becomes experience, and experience becomes better leadership. Thanks for listening to Leadership in the Line of Fire. Until next time, stay calm, keep learning, and as always, run towards the flames.